What's up, guys? What's going on? I'm Paul. This is Pauline Theology's daily devotional with Trust in Jesus Ministries. Glad you're here listening. We are going through the book of Genesis. We're on Genesis 48, 12 through 20. And right now we're in the midst of Joseph visiting his father with his sons as he is seeking a blessing for his sons, which is a customary thing that happens between a father and a son, a father and a grandson. I haven't seen too much lately. It's probably still customary, though, because the fact that Israel actually gets to see his grandchildren is something that wasn't ever stated for Abraham and Isaac. So Israel is being blessed more than he can even imagine. And we talked about that last episode where he said, God has not only allowed me to see my son, whom I thought was dead, but also grandchildren. And we also talked about a couple episodes ago about the promise being fulfilled and that his seed is being multiplied. We are getting, Israel is getting to see the multiplication in real time of his seed. He's seeing grandchildren. I think he's even seeing great grandchildren. He's got generations that have been blossoming in Goshen it's crazy that he is flourishing while the land is being devastated by this famine, and the people around whom we read about, the devastation is so bad that they're selling themselves into slavery. And so it's like God is just flourishing and blessing the people of Israel. And so he's getting to see all of this happen right before his eyes, man. And so we're in this time where a blessing is about to be bestowed upon his grandchildren. Well, actually, they're his children now, because he said he has claimed them as his own. They're no longer Joseph's children, but they are under his name. He has adopted them as children, as his own, like he said, like Simon and Reuben. So he's actually blessing his own children that they would increase. And so we're going to see that. If you haven't read it yet, man, go ahead and check it out. 48, 12 through 20. Stop the tape, see what it has to say, come back, and we'll answer the 4 questions. If you've already read it, hey, let's go ahead and answer them right now. What's the first question? You know the first question. What's going on? What's happening, man? What is going on in the narrative? Well, it says that Joseph presents his children before Israel. I keep saying Isaac, sorry. But he presents his children before Israel, who are his children now. He said he claimed them as his own. First, it says that he bows down before him, man. He gives deference to his father, even a man at his high position in accordance to all of society. You know, he's above everybody but Pharaoh himself. Still, he humbles himself before his father. That to me just already has application that's huge, is that we honor our father and mother. That's what we do. No matter how great, how big, how awesome that we get, that there is still honor and reverence for the position of father in our lives. Anyway, I did the application a little early, but that's something that I wasn't even thinking about. That's just something that popped up to me right now as I was just reading through that. But anyway, he bows before his father and he brings his kids up to him, man. And he places them because we saw that Israel's eyes was getting bad. He can't see. It says his eyes were old or heavy and he wasn't able to tell who they were. That's probably why, maybe one of the reasons why he said, who are these? Just not recognizing them because he couldn't see them. But it could have been also, we talked about the opening for this blessing that he's about to bestow. But anyway, Joseph brings his children to Israel. He puts his oldest on the right side of Israel, and he puts his youngest on the left side of Israel, because the right hand is the dominant hand, and it's the hand in which, when he blesses, would be the major blessing, or the greater blessing, or, because that's the right hand, the dominant hand. And so he places his eldest, the firstborn, who in normal circumstances would be receiving the greatest blessing, on the right of his father. And on the left, he places his younger. And as Israel begins to bless him, he stretches out his hand, but he doesn't just put his hands the right and the left. He switches them up. There's a switcheroo on him, man. He puts his right hand on the left his left hand on the right, which means that his right hand, the dominant blessing hand, the one of prominence, is placed on the younger. And then his left hand, which is I guess, the more submissive, is placed on the older. And then he begins to bless them. He begins to say that, pour out a blessing on them, that they would increase, that they would be they're going to be great. He says that they would be great. Matter of fact, he says that, and he's asking, not only, he's not the one blessing them. I'm sorry. It's actually, he blesses through God, because he says, may God bless them. And then he gives a descriptor of God, which is so beautiful, man. He says, may the God who my fathers walked before, Abraham and Isaac, the God who has been a shepherd to me, who has been a shepherd to me even till this day. That means he leads him and he guides him and he provides for them, man. You know, all those stories about sheep that people talk about. I'm not a farmer. I'm not a shepherd. I don't know much about them, but I do know that, I don't know, but I do know from people saying that it's a very difficult job, because sheep are hard-headed and stubborn and ignorant, and that a shepherd has to do a lot to be able to maintain, keep, and provide for the sheep so that they can survive, and that he does so, though, in a gentle way. You know, I think the scriptures say he leads them beside still waters, man. And so he said that this God, whom has shepherded him even to this day, you know, this is an intimate relationship that he has. And then the intimate relationship was not just started with him. It's an intimate relationship of discipleship, because he says, whom my fathers walked before, or some understand it as that whom God walked with his fathers, before the face of his fathers. So in either translation, it could be correct. The Hebrew has it as a plural verb, and it could be Elohim, which is a plural noun, or it could be Abraham and Isaac both walking. In either way, in either situation, or the circumstances is correct, is that it's a discipleship relationship in which the fathers are walking and teaching their children to walk with this intimate God who is a shepherd to them. And it also could be the fact that God is walking with them as a shepherd, providing for, taking care of, and leading. He says, may this God bless them, man. May this God cause them to increase. May this God cause them to be bountiful in the land. May this God be the one in which people say, man, it's a blessing. May we be like Manasseh. May we be like Ephraim, because of the blessings that come upon them so heavily, so greatly, man. May that be what happens to these children because of you, God. Now we got a problem, though. During this whole blessing that is being given out, we got the switcheroo. You see, Joseph purposefully placed the eldest on the right side for that right hand blessing, and the youngest on the left side. But Abraham did something different. He did the switcheroo. He crossed his hands, it says. And when he did this, Joseph was not happy, man. He says, don't do this, Father. He says, put your hand. And he actually tried to move his hand on the head of the older so that he might be blessed with the right hand. He says, I know. You don't like this. He's like, Israel's like, I know. You're not a big fan of this, man. He's like, but this isn't what it is. This isn't how it's going down, man. See, God is leading him. It's funny that he says this too, because he says, the God who has shepherded me even to this day. And he could be alluding to the fact that he is shepherding him, and the fact that he should be blessing the younger over the older in a greater way. And he says so. He says, man, your oldest, man, he's going to be awesome, dude. He's like, he's going to be great. He's going to increase. He's gonna be a wonderful tribe, man, but the younger will be greater. He says the younger will have nations. I think it could be like some think of it as a group of nations, or another way is that it could be that he will become like all the tribes under his nation. And we see that Ephraim is the youngest, and later on, as we read the top country, uh, Samaria is actually considered Ephraim. They're called Ephraim in the scriptures oftentimes, and so this thing which his father has done in the fact that he has made uh, Ephraim greater than Manasseh. He hasn't made him that way. God has made him that way. He was only pronouncing the blessing that God had upon him. But it plays out in reality. That's the beauty of the scriptures, as we see how God is faithful and true in all that he does. But we find that Ephraim becomes greater than Manasseh. Ephraim becomes greater than Manasseh. And so he blessed them. He said that Ephraim will be greater than Manasseh. Now, what does this say about God? Well, God is sovereign again. We're going to catch that aspect of him, but he's the sovereign chooser of destinies. He's the one who decides and plans the lives of all of us. And he does it in ways that are unexpected to us because we think we have it all planned out sometimes. It says, I think in Proverbs, that man plans his steps, but God establishes them. It's like it's God who is the one who's actually going to end up having things happen the way they are. And we've seen in I think it's called a patrilineal society, where the firstborn is the preeminent one, the one who stands above all, who is responsible and takes the most in the inheritance and the blessing. And we've seen that played out, but it looks like God doesn't work that way all the time. He chooses our destinies. And if he desires for the younger to rule the older, that's how it'll be. And it seems to be that way so that maybe we realize that God is the one who does destinies. You see, because sometimes we think that it's the rules of society. It's the way it's supposed to be. But God says, no, it's the way that he desires it to be. And what does this say about man? Sometimes what we think is right ain't really right. Sometimes what we perceive is the best way is not really the best way. I think I gave an example one time of missionaries that I had talked to who thought that they were supposed to go back in this place. And it seemed to be the right decision because what they were trying to do is evangelize, share, and grow the church of God. But it was not God's desire for them to be there. So he restricted that. And oftentimes we think it's Satan who does those things. Well, Satan has caused, but it could have been, and most likely was, God's desire for them not to go back. That there was something that he needed the people there to do on their own without them. And so even though they thought what they were doing was the will of God, it wasn't. And so I think that's a thing that we have to come to terms with sometimes, is that what we perceive is best for God. God's like, no, I got this, bro. I'm the sovereign controller. I'm the one who chooses. I'm the one that controls all things. It's like, so listen to me. And so that's what Joseph has to do, and I think that's what we should do. How do we apply these truths to our lives? I think it's time for us to do the nitty and gritty work. Get into the scriptures, study, read, find out what truly is his will, and then follow it. And as we continue to follow the things that we know God has said he wanted us to do, which are clearly laid out in scripture, then he begins to reveal other things which may not be so clear, the things that we might think are his will, yet he wants us to go in an entirely different direction. And so we're doing that right now as we're studying through the scriptures, as we're going through Genesis, learning about his character, seeing who he is, what he's done, how he is faithful. But continuing that path. And as we learn who he is, learn Jesus, as we learn God, as we get intimate and more intimate with him, and we trust in him more, then he leads us more, so that we might be able to say that he was a shepherd to us, even to this day. I appreciate you guys for listening, and I will see you in the next episode.